Welcome to the Sanctuary Community Holidays podcast, produced by me, Noah Bakur, with Claire Ashwheeler and Rachel B. In this podcast, we explore the amazing connections that happen when asylum seekers and refugees come and stay in rural areas for a few days. We hope you will be inspired to get involved and make a holiday happen in your area. Happy listening.
Welcome to the Sanctuary Community Holidays podcast. Today, I'm Rachel B. I'm here with Claire Ashwheeler, and we're talking about hosting on a Sanctuary Community holiday. And so today we're going to be giving you some guidance if you're thinking about hosting someone in your home, and we'll talk from our own experience of that, and hopefully that will be really helpful for people that want to host somebody through a Sanctuary Community holiday. We're going to be talking about what an asylum seeker and refugee is, what a Sanctuary Community holiday actually is, and then we're going to be talking about practical things, English, toilets, alcohol, money, these kind of things, and then we'll end by talking about what a trauma-informed conversation is, which is a really important thing. So we hope you get right to the end and stick with us. So Claire, what is a Sanctuary Community holiday?
Well, Sanctuary Community holidays are quite specific in that we encourage people from urban agencies, asylum seekers and refugees, to come to a rural setting and have a lovely holiday in the countryside.
Amazing.
But staying with hosts in a hosted home setting, generally 2 asylum seekers in each home of a local person. And we find that when that happens, that asylum seekers or refugees come into a British person's home and have meals across the table, conversations, feel that connection, build a connection with each other, and a cultural exchange happens, connections happen, and it can really be such a positive experience for both the local people in the rural setting and the asylum seekers, refugees, because it builds that confidence and trust and an opening for both people to have the opportunity to be together, which wouldn't normally happen that much in our culture. So we're facilitating this with Sanctuary Community holidays.
Amazing. So it might be worth, perhaps it would be good if I explained a little bit about what an asylum seeker and refugee is.
I think that's really helpful for people.
Okay, so an asylum seeker is someone who's come to the UK and they have said to the UK government that they need the protection of the UK under international law, and that they want to be recognised as a refugee. And in the time that they're an asylum seeker, they're housed by the government in all sorts of different accommodation, often without cooking facilities and that kind of thing. So it's pretty difficult for people, particularly in so-called hotels. Don't get the wrong idea about what they're like. And then some people are granted their refugee status. So that means that their claim for protection is accepted by the government, and that means that they can work, they can claim benefits if they need to, they can rent a room in a house, they can start their life, they can build again, having lost so much in the decision to leave and to come here for safety. Some people are refused their asylum claim and they become destitute, refused asylum seekers. It sounds like that's the end, okay, but it isn't normally the end actually, because most people who are refused, they've already been to a court hearing and things, but perhaps they never had very good advice, and so it might just be that no one ever really told them what an asylum claim was or how to make it, and so they weren't able to explain what they had gone through and why that met the threshold. So I think that's one of the things that often people don't understand. But if somebody is a destitute, refused asylum seeker, they are literally destitute. They have no recourse to public funds. That means they can't claim any benefits at all. They have no right to work. And so people are often reliant on charity and family and friends, if they have family here. So that's the situation for a destitute, refused asylum seeker, for an asylum seeker, and for a refugee. And the people that come on Sanctuary Community holidays, they might be any of those people. Sometimes people get refugee status, but they're really struggling and they haven't found anywhere to live, and there's lots of homelessness there. So they might be really needing a holiday. And sometimes people might be in hotels as asylum seekers and they might really need a holiday. Sometimes people might be destitute, refused asylum seekers living with a charity that is looking after them in either maybe another host home or something else, and they need a holiday. So all the people that need a holiday are people that are sanctuary seekers or refugees. Yeah.
Thanks for that definition, because it is complicated. And I remember when I started my journey into this area with you, I didn't know the difference between an asylum seeker and refugee, and the media is always referring to people as migrants or refugees, but mostly they're seeking asylum. They haven't got their status, refugee status yet, so it is confusing, and it's great to clarify that. Thanks, Rach.
No, that's okay. So perhaps it'd be good to think about what people who are thinking about offering a room or 2 rooms in their home, what exactly are they offering and what are they not offering?
That's a really good point. So if you decide to be a host with Sanctuary Community Holidays, that means you will be having probably 2 asylum seeker refugees in your house for a period of time, maybe 3 or 5 days and nights. And really you're just offering bed and breakfast. You don't charge anybody, obviously this is a voluntary thing you're doing as a host. And you will be offering them a breakfast in the morning, and then they're out all day with activities that are provided by other volunteers, and then they come back at the end of the evening, and you might have a cup of tea and a chat with them. They might want to watch a bit of telly with you, or you share what your day was like with them. So it's a bit like having a friend stay who isn't a friend, obviously they're a stranger, and they're stepping
might become a friend.
I hope so. That's the idea. We find it happens time and again. So they sort of step into your life, but you also may be going out to work all the time as well, so you've got other commitments. So this, the Sanctuary Community Holidays model, it really means that there's not a lot of impact on you, apart from the bed and the breakfast and the evening chat. But you are generally welcome to participate in activities if you want to, but it might not work for you. So it's that kind of thing, you welcome them into your house. Now, they may not have all the things we might have if we live in the countryside. They may not have raincoats and wellies or swimming suits and towels and things like that. So it's really helpful if you have those extra to offer it to them.
And hope you're the same size.
Yeah. But also generally the rural setting, and the other volunteers would have thought that through and found additional, towels and swim things if needed. But in your own home, there's also things like if you can provide a towel for them, shampoo, soap, things like you would do with a friend as well coming to stay.
Okay, so it really is just bed and breakfast and then a chat in the evening.
Yeah.
And what if somebody doesn't really want to chat in the evening? Does that happen sometimes?
It does happen because they have a very busy day, and so it's very stimulating. They'll be doing activities all day with the group, and they may come back really like, wow, I've had no routine in my life, and now I'm getting up quite early, having breakfast with people, going out the door to the meeting space, having all day activities, and then coming home in the evening, and actually I just want a cup of water and go to bed, check my emails and my WhatsApps. So yeah, I don't think hosts should take it personally that people don't want to hang out with them, but it might just be they're getting used to a lot of stimulation, a lot of new things. Often people have never been on a holiday in the UK, not even been to the countryside, so everything can be new and quite overstimulating, and they just need to process it and have a quiet night.
I suppose people might want to talk to family on the internet, so maybe the Wi-Fi code's the first thing that you give someone.
Generally is when you go on holiday.
That's true. Or when you go to a cafe.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, so what about toilets? So people are going to come from other parts of the world where maybe don't use the toilet in exactly the same way. What have you found you've needed to provide?
Yeah, we got advice from the refugee agency about things like that, which was really helpful. And particularly the Islamic culture have a different kind of cultural hygiene system. And so we provide a plastic bottle or a plastic milk bottle by the toilet, because the different way that they go to the toilet, they use water to clean their bottoms, not paper, but they use paper to dry them. So this might be too much information for some people, but it's good to know. And that's perfectly fine. And once you know as a host what's expected, then you can provide it really easily.
And you might want to put talking of details, you might want to put a plastic bag in your waste paper basket in your toilet, just in case somebody puts their toilet paper, which you think is used but is just water,
Yeah.
into the waste paper basket.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Good tip.
Okay. Fabulous. So things about what people might be doing in the day. Obviously, every holiday has different activities on offer.
Yeah.
But what sort of time period would people normally be out of the house for?
Well, they generally go to the meeting space in the morning after breakfast, maybe around 10 o'clock, and then they'll be there all day, waiting for everyone to gather, and then they'll go off and do an activity. Sometimes it might be away from their rural site, or may it be really nearby and walking to. So the sort of activities that I'm familiar with, where we provide a holiday, is going to the local swimming pool,
That was
swimming
fun.
session, going for a walk in the local area with a guide, doing some artwork, helping at an organic veggie market garden, and that was a lovely thing because that's a little bit a way of giving back to the local community. And sometimes the asylum seekers will have come from a very rural background, and they love just planting leeks is what we do a lot of the time because it's in the summer, and we can really crack on, plant a lot of leeks, and then we'll go to the swimming pool, or then we'll go and do some yoga and meditation. There's a whole range of things, and this depends on each setting's local people, their skills and talents, what they can offer. So we put a call out to local people, and they'll come back and say, I'd love to do an art class with your asylum seekers, or I've got skills walking in the local area, I can tell them about what's going on there, or walking around the town. One time we went to the swimming pool, and this guy from Gambia had never been in a swimming pool. So it's sort of, and he loved it. He couldn't swim, but he sat in the shallow end just going, wow, this is incredible. So it's giving those opportunities to people that we might take for granted. And they're very, very receptive, very appreciative, and very respectful. I've always found that with our guests.
Okay. So in terms of people that are having someone stay with them, they just need to know that the person will need taking somewhere in the morning, perhaps after the time that they would normally have started work if they're working. So think about that, and also about coming back in the evening. They will already have eaten, so they'll be coming back after dinner. So it's only like hot drink, cup of water, something like that. A little chat around the table if they're up for it. Yeah. Okay.
It's quite simple.
So what about English? What do you tend to find? How much English do people have, and how does that work if they don't have much?
It really varies a lot, and one of the jobs of the rural area is to match quite a good English speaker with maybe a basic English speaker. So there are 2 people in every house, and that really helps oil the wheels for the hosts and helps communication a lot. But you don't always get that. They might both have basic English. They generally like to practice English because they do have the possibility of going to English classes. That's something the government offers, is access to education, and they mostly take it up. So practicing English, they really like doing that. It's not ever been a problem, and anyway, you have Google Translate, you have sign language, and would you like some breakfast, and here it is, you get along. Generally it's a lot of laughs.
So the other thing to think about is about breakfast. So if you're going to provide bed and breakfast, your main thing that you've got to work out what you're going to give people is your breakfast. So what kind of things do people tend to want to eat? What's good to have in the fridge?
Well, it's a 2-phase thing. What's recommended by the rural agency in our case is that we say mostly they may like cereal, they may not. They may like toast, they may like bread, they may like white bread, they may like brown bread. They may like tea without milk, or just plain coffee, or just water. It really varies so much. And fruit, or eggs. So we might have all of that on offer, but don't be surprised if they say, no, I don't feel like it. They may be used to eating later, or they might not have anything they recognise. And I remember one of the hosts saying that it took a couple of days of offering different things before they found out that their guests really liked feta cheese and honey. And they could get that in, and that was fine. So it's like, it may take a while for the asylum seekers to be comfortable really expressing what they want. And so just to be aware of that, and it's really nice when you find something everybody likes and is happy with. Because as host, you want to make them have a good time. You want to make everything perfect, have a good time, right? That's what we like to do when we have visitors. And it's the same with our hosts. And the guests want to be the best guests ever. So sometimes they won't say what they prefer.
Yeah.
And so it takes a little bit of a dance around the kitchen.
Some cultures perhaps more willing to say what they want than others.
Very true.
Yeah.
I once heard an Afghani, I was told that Afghanis have to be offered something 3 times before that they actually will take it, so not to feel offended if they say no, they don't want a cup of tea. Is that, have you?
Yeah, that's the same with Iran.
Okay.
But I think you absolutely have to ask 3 times, otherwise they don't think that you mean it, or it's impolite to say yes.
Yeah.
You know, so I think,
Yes.
but it's ridiculous because I try and do it my English way. So I'm like, would you like a cup of tea? And they say, no, thank you. And then, and I'm like, okay, would you like a cup of tea? I haven't got a second phrase, you know, like, and they go, no, thank you. And then I go, oh, would you like a cup of tea? And then they say, yes, please. I'm like, what? This is a strange dance I'm doing here. But I think I should work on 3 different phrases rather than just one repeated 3 times. But anyway, okay.
Good tip.
So other things that we're going to think about practically. What about money? So sometimes people will come and they'll be destitute, refugee asylum seekers, and they will have maybe the money that the urban project is able to give them to live on, subsistence fund.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll be quite keen to show that they can afford things, so they might spend that when they're there, rather than, even though it might be all they've got. Or there might be somebody who is a refugee and has got leave to remain, and maybe they've started working but their housing situation's not that great, so that's why the holiday is good. So they might have more money. Or someone who's an asylum seeker might just have a bit more than someone who's in a project. Do you think is that about right? So sometimes people will have cash and sometimes not.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So don't be shocked.
Don't be shocked. And I remember one time at the end of the holiday, knowing that they get very little from the government each week if they're in a hotel or if they're in a shared accommodation, a housing situation. And I know that the agencies give them some, but it's not much. But at the end of this holiday, this guy went and bought a lovely thank you card, you know, and I just felt that is so kind, and that's what people do, is a thank you when friends come. But I'm just aware that he really probably couldn't afford it. Yeah. But he really wanted to do the best thing. So yeah, and it was a lovely offering. Okay. So the money thing, they don't have bank account, they can't open bank accounts until they're refugees. So they're in a bind. Yeah. So
and if they have any cash, it will be cash.
That's it.
Yeah, which is sometimes the shock, isn't it? Because we don't see cash. We see people with a card everywhere.
And that reminds me about being a host. It's about being open-minded and open-hearted, and not with judgment. We all come with judgments, don't we? Because we don't know what to expect, but we have expectations. It's a funny mixture. But it's being that kind of open-mindedness when you see things you didn't expect. But don't draw conclusions from it, is what I would say. Yeah. Don't draw conclusions, just be open-minded and relax about being a host, because it's a really enjoyable experience. Obviously you're nervous before they get there because you've never met them. Yeah. You might not even know who they are until the day before, because the agency situation could change. Their life may change, that they've got to go to a doctor's appointment they didn't know they were going to have, or go to the Home Office situation. So their life is very erratic and not steady like ours is. So you might not know who's coming or even which country they're from until a day or 2 before. And so just being open-hearted and flexible is really a help to you and them. And remember that they also don't know you. They're coming into an English stranger's home. They don't know how to behave properly. They'll do their best, but there may be misunderstandings and mismatches at times. But if you can relax, I think that is the key thing, and just enjoy the process.
Can you say anything about alcohol? So obviously some people are coming from Muslim countries. We might expect that they don't drink at all, and many people wouldn't. Does everybody not drink? What do you recommend about that to host? Should people have alcohol available or not? It is a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? Because even Muslim people will drink, and some definitely don't, and some will want to drink or to try it and be hospitable back. But from my experience, it's good, if you like, we don't recommend that you include alcohol
in the activities or the evening meal when they're with their friends, or if the providers of the food in the evening offer drinks as well. We've just found it doesn't work, because you'll have people who do want to drink and then those who don't, and it can set up quite a bit of friction and an uncomfortable feeling between the guests, and the host might not realise that's going on, but there's a kind of underflow of tension. So we actually recommend not having alcohol at any of the evening meals or the events that you go to. Can be tricky, because English people often like a drink at the end of the day themselves, but if you can substitute that for yourself to a soft drink, I think you'll feel more comfortable, and the guests would feel more comfortable overall.
Okay.
Is that
so
what
you're
you were
recommending
thinking?
really that you don't have alcohol on offer in the evening when people come back. Yeah, and I think that's over quite a few years of realising that actually, although it felt like something that was part of our British hospitality culture, such as it is, it wasn't actually a helpful part of that for other people.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And then I think the other thing that we should cover is around trauma. So one of the things that we have found is that people will sometimes come on a holiday and they've been holding in a lot of things, and then they'll suddenly feel like they're in a safe place, and those things start to come out. And so if by being kind and compassionate and loving, we start these conversations with people around the table at night over a hot cocoa, that actually those conversations lead to them oversharing things that they're not surrounded by the right support to talk about at that moment, then it can be a trigger for a trauma response in a person. And we're not in a good place in rural areas necessarily to get trauma, first aid. Okay.
Mental first aid
at that point. And so I think that's one of the things that we've also tried to encourage people. There are lots of conversations you can have that are not, how did you arrive here? Tell me a bit about why you left your country, and these kind of questions. We often want to know. We want to know about that, because we want to know the person, and we feel like that's a big part of who they are. But it's normally advised not to start that kind of conversation. What would you do if somebody was sitting around having a cocoa and you didn't ask them anything about that, but they started to talk to you? How would you deal with that situation? Because we're trying to be trauma informed, we're trying not to create triggers in people. What would you do?
I think I would just listen. I wouldn't ask questions, because I wouldn't ask about their children, because often they've had to leave their children behind, and that's really painful. I wouldn't necessarily ask about their parents or their siblings. And like you say, I wouldn't ask, how did you get to this country? How was your journey? But I think I would just be a listening board. And maybe I would ask, are you getting support from the agency? And you tell me what you would recommend as well, because it's a new area for people in rural areas.
I think that what I would say is that sometimes people start to talk, and the response, because you're being a compassionate listener, your response is encouraging them to carry on. And sometimes it's good to say, I am honoured that you're sharing this with me. I know it's a really important thing that you're sharing, and I'm happy to listen to you. But if you're feeling that you're getting distressed by sharing this with me, I want you to feel you can stop. You don't need to explain anything. You can just, I don't need you to carry on saying this if it's not good for you. And give people the opportunity to stop sharing if they want to. I think there's a lot of power that we can't see in the relationships where because you're offering a room and a holiday and it's a beautiful gift, the person wants to respond to you, and sometimes maybe they share more than they want to, and sometimes they share what they want to. Finally, I found someone who will listen long enough for me to get out these things that I've been trying to get out, and maybe that's okay, but I think you should check in the conversation to make sure it's still okay at regular intervals. And if the person becomes distressed, encourage them to wait there and call the urban project lead at that point.
Yeah.
So if you get to a situation where someone has started to share and they have become quite distressed about that, then you need to be getting the support of the person that knows them best and who also has a bit more trauma knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think that would be okay. That's what the urban project staff member is there for. That would be okay to call them at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
to
check in.
To say, can you please have a conversation with this person? And they can decide if they need to come round or whatever at that point. I mean, it's never normally got there, I must confess. So this is not something that's happened. There are people that have shared quite deep things in that evening cocoa. And there's lots and lots of people who have not.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it's got to the people that have shared deep things, they have been okay and they have checked in the next day, and both the host and the guest have come to me as the urban project lead and said, we've had this conversation. So I was able to really work out what that person needed, and actually I think in the situation I'm thinking of right now, that person needed to be able to stay at the central location for that day and do a bit of processing and be in the stillness of the countryside, but not lots of activity. And so that's what we facilitated for them as a sort of almost like a recovery. But it was good for them, and they say that again and again. It was good for them to have that conversation. So, it isn't a straightforward blanket ban. Yeah. It is very good that people are careful with the questions they ask, just as you've explained. You think something simple like, well, you have children. Okay. That will be a really nice conversation starter, but it can be a trigger for trauma.
Yeah. So what I like to talk about, or one way in, is around food.
Okay.
Sharing food about other people's food in their countries and how they're getting on with food in this country, and that can lead to lots of different things like growing food and how you celebrate in your country with food. So there are other angles.
Yeah.
But it can be tricky as a British person to sort of stay away from the things that, as you said, like, oh, you've got children or grandchildren, and how old are they, and what are they doing, and where are they? Oh, right. Oops.
Yeah.
Strayed too much into personal territory. And also, one person said to me that was staying with us, I'm not used to talking about myself so much, because you get to know people, you're backwards and forwards with questions, and they're not used to someone being interested in them. Yeah. And this is the other thing that comes out from hosting, is that they realise you really do care. Yeah. And caring means you share more, like you were saying, but you have to be a little careful and thoughtful about that. But this is the impact that Sanctuary Community Holidays can make, going to someone's home, getting to know them, and they start feeling cared for and caring, and that can have a big influence on their confidence and moving their life forward. Yeah. Someone wants to stay in touch with a WhatsApp group or something like that, and then staying in touch and sharing photos or how are you today at certain points can really buoy some people up to help them take those next steps and share.
Certainly in our urban project, we found people that were destitute refugee asylum seekers very much lacking hope for the future, and came on a holiday and then felt confident enough to try another time, to somebody just had not believed them again and again. It's so difficult when you're not believed, and to just try again, and they've been able to get their leave to remain. So it has had that kind of an impact on people, just that gentle, loving, welcoming, hospitable presence, and that's really what a Sanctuary Community Holiday host is there for. Yeah. So it doesn't matter that the bed linen is not new. It matters that the welcome that you offer to someone is kind-hearted and warm. Yeah.
And we have heard from hosts again and again, because we give a feedback form to our hosts as well as to our guests. We've heard again and again how they were surprised how much they enjoyed it being a host, how it was a privilege, how they developed a friendship, all those things they didn't know what to expect, and it was over and above. I don't want to build expectations. For some people, let's say, it was over and above what they thought it would be, and it was a very joyful time as well.
That's true.
So,
and I think they've also said the first day was a bit awkward, and then it became this beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth sticking in with it and being willing to have conversations about football, you know, or whatever it is.
Music,
food, you know, just to kind of make it less intense. I think starting off less intense is a good way of going.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I remember when our asylum seekers, we had a couple of Syrian asylum seekers stay with us one time. And we got on really well.
Yeah.
And they helped us in the garden after the evening session, actually, and sat around with mint tea and chatted about the day. And we all felt really comfortable within 2 days of each other. And their English was pretty good, but they hadn't been in the country very long. And by the second or third day, they said, "Can we make you breakfast?" I just thought that they felt that comfortable. It was so nice. I thought that would be lovely, and they made some eggs and some hummus and things like that. And then they wanted to make some baba ganoush, and we're going to cook this aubergine. I said, "That's great. I'd love to try that." And I didn't really know baba ganoush then. Anyway, they started putting the aubergine on the gas flame on the top. I thought they were going to put it in the oven like you would, British person would. But no, because of their culture, they use a live flame and they put it on the gas flame. And I walk into the kitchen going, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" And they said, "What? What?" And they were totally in control.
Yeah.
It wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
It was just, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
So I loved how I learnt about their culture and the cultural differences. That's what gives me so much pleasure. Hosting and that exchange. "Oh, you do it like that, okay." And it was so tasty. Now I make it myself like that, and I get a lot of pleasure from it.
Wow, I think that's a lovely story to finish on. Yeah. So one of the things that we want to say is we have our website, sanctuarycommunityholidays.org.uk. Please go there and you'll find some of the resources that you need there. But also feel free to email us, because we can give you a paper copy of most of what we've talked about today. So you can have reference for this conversation, so please get in touch. If you're thinking about hosting, please try. It's worth it. It's worth trying. It's worth being a little bit brave, because the outcomes of that are beautiful. And so we really hope that you will take the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.